didn't like that.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first official episode of the As You Should podcast with me, Myles Morgan Bailey, and my lovely colleague, Michael Farra. Two photographers that just would like to speak about some work and have a good time. So we're going to try and keep this theme of just speaking about things that we enjoy and things that are interesting to us. And hopefully over the course of the next few months or however long, we'll hope to develop a bit more and keep a bit more of a regular schedule. But today we're going to be talking about two of our recent projects, my zine and short film Wake that released last July. So hopefully by the time of the release, it'll be exactly a year since that came out. And Michael's current work on Stanstead Raceway on banger racing. So yeah, let's get into it. How you doing, Michael?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm sunburned.
Oh yeah, you do look a bit pink.
My nose is a bit. I actually went to the track yesterday.
Yeah.
When it was a lot hotter than I sort of realised it was going to be, and didn't wear enough sun cream or any sun cream.
So that's naturally not enough.
My nose is a bit. My neck's got the worst. It's stinging a lot, and like the back of my legs. But I got some good pictures out of it, so
that's good. I bet it was probably like stupid hot there over the last week.
It was stupid hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate. I should have anticipated it, really, being that we're like in a heat wave. But obviously not. And then my nose is a bit red.
Yeah. The globe do be warming.
It do be warming.
Alrighty. Shall we kick off?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wake.
Wake,
we wanted to talk about Wake. We've both got it here. Here's one I made earlier.
Here's one I have signed, I think.
I probably signed it, yeah.
The number written.
Oh, just a number. I can sign it for you.
This is like they say coming up to a year now. But the actual work in progress has been quite a bit longer, hasn't it?
Yeah, I guess for context for those who aren't aware, so in 2019 there's about 3 skateboarders who passed away in quite a short time frame. Ben Ramers, good friend Banjo, and another good friend Wilson. And I should note these aren't good friends of mine. There's like friends of friends who I'd only had small interactions with. And that was kind of what that played a huge role into kind of how I went about trying to photograph this kind of space, because I feel slightly removed from it in the sense. So I used to skate when I was younger and then stopped for quite a while. And then it was hearing about these 3 passings that slowly brought me back into the scene a bit more regularly and into seeing people that I hadn't seen in a long time. So I wanted to document that, kind of how people were interacting, how things had changed since I'd stopped skating, because people were just being a lot more open. There was a lot of different conversations that you just weren't had 5-10 years ago, which is happening in a lot of different sectors, not just in the skateboarding scene, but the big one being like huge discussions on male mental health and camaraderie and guys being very open to say from one friend to another, like, I love you, friend, XYZ. So that was between the start of 2019 to the end. There was like several different memorial events that I was photographing during the time, and I was just like photographing as much skating as I could to really get myself back into that kind of space. But it didn't really become what it is now until it didn't start to until the following summer, where I'd stopped photographing, being out of uni and just trying to find some work, and which was quite impossible. Well, it was impossible during 2020 summer, for reasons we've all heard too much about by now. But long story short, my mental health took quite the dive, and it was skateboarding and photography and my friends that like slowly brought me back out of that state. So the zine and the short film that come along with that will kind of pay homage to, I suppose, those two time periods. Like the initial, this is what's happened, this is the groundwork for the narrative that follows, and just the appreciation side of kind of seeing myself grow and being thankful for those around me that have helped.
It's a very nice sum up.
Mm.
Yeah. So did you still feel like a bit of a stranger when you went back into skating? You know, did you still feel like a skater?
No.
You feel like more of, you know, an outsider going into this community to photograph?
Yeah, I still feel like that now, to be honest. Like even when I go skating, and people who I've known since I was like 11, and people who are older than me who wouldn't even dare question it. They're just like, oh, that's just Myles. But in my head, I'm just like, no, you're just that guy who's that guy with the camera, like shouldn't really be here, whatever. But you know, like the reality of it is that I've just as much right as anybody, and why wouldn't I? It's just these internal insecurities and whatever about.
It's quite hard not to have imposter syndrome.
Well, that's it exactly.
As a, you want to be there as part of like as a community member, but then you're going there with a camera, and that then changes your identity again.
But it's kind of different with skating in particular, because being in front of your friend's face with a camera is so synonymous with that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you hang out with your friends for like 8 hours a day, like every day after school and all of these things, and everyone's messing around, everyone's doing these tricks and whatever. And if you're not recording it, it's kind of a bit like, well, what are you doing? Like there's got to be clips of it. Like you go and speak to every young group of skaters, or every group of skaters, there was always a filmer, there was always somebody taking pictures. Like everybody's like encapsulating this little, well, like the formative years of your life, really. Like they're all lost now, but on old laptops and stuff, there'd be hundreds and hundreds of hours of just like what would effectively be nothing, but like would be like 8 hours of us all just like slapping each other in the face, or kind of messing around on skating on grass or whatever. But yeah, that's something that I just have a problem with, just being trying to get out of this like imposter syndrome kind of feeling. But it kind of ebbs and flows now, and I guess kind of how I feel about the project always does. But they'll making this and trying to like learn and relearn about so much other kind of culture and history around skating. It was only then that I started to feel a bit more like, oh, okay, this is something that I'm a part of and that I really appreciate, and is happy to welcome me back into the space as much as it's happy to kind of just have me respect it from afar.
Yeah,
because it's one of those things like it doesn't really leave you. Like even if I can't like do 10 kickflips in a row or whatever, like if somebody like gave me a board, I could still just like throw it down and just ride down the street and just have a good time with it. So yeah.
So the actual pictures themselves. And so like, because we had like a few discussions about this, and then so like I've mentioned before that for me, I see two different trauma responses in the images, and then my sort of most of my interest is sort of in, you know, why does photography made as a response to trauma manifests itself in such a way? And I was talking mostly about the post-war Japanese photography, such as Daido Moriyama, and we have in those books see the same sort of thing, you know, black and white film, very, very hard grain, very hard contrast, almost to some degree abstract in some places. But as far as I know, you weren't really aware of those, or weren't really thinking about those projects and those series of images when you went into making this. So just for your own process, you know, why did you, as a photographer, decide to approach the image making in this way? You know, the film and you know, then in the presentation, you know full bleed and very hard grain. And then, you know, obviously, like, it makes sense having a zine because it's skating, but at the same time with images like this, you could have gone the typical photo book route, but then you sort of stuck to this format. Is there any particular reason for that?
Well, in terms of sticking to the format of the zine, I mean, as you said, like, you know, skating is synonymous with a certain idea of, or a certain version, I guess, of accessibility. You know, because even with just skateboarding as a sport, because it's taken up by so many people, you get all kinds of people who are going to be interested in it. Not everyone's going to be able to get like a brand new setup every Christmas, or not everyone's going to be able to buy themselves their own thing, and they're going to have to wait for a Christmas or a birthday or whatever. So making this like, as much as I love hardcover photo books, and some of these images could sit very well in that sort of space.
Yeah, definitely.
For something like this, because it's such a personal story, I feel putting it on a hardcover would kind of try and elevate it to something that it's not that it doesn't deserve, like a story like this not that it doesn't deserve that kind of pedestal, but I just think it would be trying to do too much.
Yeah, too formal.
Yeah, and that kind of comes with like the size of it and the price of it as well. Like, in my head, like, I wanted to charge £12 for it. Like, I've always had that in my head, but I just thought there's something about anything more than £10 that someone will generally look at and go like, maybe not. But you can look at a tenner and think that's a nice round accessible number that more or less most people who are interested in photography can afford. And it's quite weighty, you know, like, even though there's not a lot of images here, there's less than 30 pictures in here. But
I think it's more expensive, mostly because of, like, you know, double page spreads and the full bleed.
Yeah. In regards to that, like, it was we'd had a workshop with the gentleman who started Self-Published Be Happy, Bruno Cashel, and we'd had to print all our images really small, and then we was like rearranging the orders and everything, and he actually came up with the first draft for it, like the first kind of ordering of images. So that was one that I kind of used as like the basis for where the images were going to sit. And he even said, he didn't even question it. He was just, right, so when you do it, the images have got to be like around the A5 size, full bleed. And we almost got into this little argument about it, because I was like, why do they have to be full bleed? And he was like, because it's a zine. I was like, I understand that, but why? Like, what's the reason? Like, why does this format have to stick in this exact way. And we actually didn't really come to any kind of resolution. I was just trying to ask a question, and I think he took it a bit, I don't know. But yeah, like, you know, hearing it from somebody else who knows a lot more than me, and this was just before I started much more of the research for it. I just kind of was like, look, this person, you know, is much more aware of the formats than I am, so let me go away and do the research rather than just sit and ask these questions. And yeah, the main idea was just keeping it synonymous with what the medium is,
Yeah,
and typically how it's shown. Like, I mean, skating and photography, you know, those things go hand in hand, but specifically black and white as well. Like, and maybe historically, this is where the black and white and the 35mm side come in. It's just, you know, just falls in line with these very strong documentary themes.
Yeah, sort of synonymous with these sort of very socially aware projects that we think about.
I'm just gonna show a bit of images because I've just been flipping it around and not seeing anything.
Yeah. Is there only one picture in here that resonates with you the most?
Honestly, the cover. I really like the cover. And it's one of the few images here that I really remember taking. Like, I picture it now, and even though there's a couple of bits around it that are quite hazy, but so it was at the launch of the Ben Ramers Foundation, set up by Lucy Ramers and other family members, Shez and Louise, is that right? I'm really sorry, I haven't spoken to them in a while. So yeah, it was at the Victoria Park, or now Ramers Park, and it was just a huge jam. There was like loads of tricks going on, competitions, prizes, and like everybody was there, everybody you can think of. And it was quite funny, months after I'd shot that, I started to, when I was putting this together properly, I was looking through negatives that I realized I hadn't scanned, and because it had been so long since I'd looked at them, they felt like brand new pictures.
Yeah.
So the very first draft of this looked completely different, because there was like at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 rolls worth of images that hadn't been touched effectively. But that one specifically, because I was on my own anyway that day. I hadn't like reached out to many people to start skating again, and I knew no one from uni would want to come back up to London with me just to go to this. So yeah, I was just walking around with my camera for a bit, and then it was almost like, I don't know, like that thing in video games where something magical just kind of appears, and you know you're drawn to it, and you just have to go towards it. But that sticks with me, I guess, just because, just like where the light's coming from and in the direction of the board, and how it's kind of left alone, in an odd way. I would imagine that's kind of like Ben heading towards the light, kind of thing. May he rest in peace. Yeah, this is the one I look at the most, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a metaphor in that way you've described it for sort of what the book is about. Heading towards the light, and light at the end of I think, like, also as well, like, I quite like the little detail of the other 2 boards.
Yeah,
like sort of just that you don't really see that until sort of, because you're sort of drawn to the central part of the image. I like that little detail as well.
It was actually a lot wider than it is, like it's cropped to be, because the zine itself is like, I don't remember the exact measurements. I think it's like 280 millimeters by 210, which
well,
is
I have a tape measure right here.
all I remember. It's either 7 or 17 millimeters shorter than A4.
Yeah, 280 by
210. It's got to be 210.
210.
There we go. What's it? And in regards to, I guess, how I shot the images and like why film and stuff, like that's just how I always knew photography to be and how it always worked. So when I started shooting 35mm when I was about 15, 16, just on a little Nikon point and shoot. And then that just kind of grew and grew. And as soon as I'd got to uni and realized that we had, you know, incredible dark rooms and developing tanks and machines and everything, I realized like, right, this is the time to go all out with it as much as I could. So it was only until, I don't know, our meeting will end in 10 minutes. Okay, sort this.
We'll start another one.
Yeah, I just knew that I just had to keep going with it. Because I could take pictures on digital and they would be fine. They would record exactly what I'm looking at, but not necessarily with the right tones. And I don't mean tones in a visual sense, if that makes sense.
I guess in a way, like visual language aside, it's like going back to like the very root of photography for you as a 15-year-old shooting film, and then taking advantage of all those facilities to just completely make something that's sort of unique to you, and sort of it expands upon everything you've learned about photography at that point.
It was quite a nice challenge as well, because I'd been interested in documentary for a long time, but I'd never done like a real documentary or photojournalist project. You obviously got your big names like Don McCullin and Robert Frank and all these interesting people. So it was nice to be able to kind of put my own kind of stamp and my own twist on those sorts of things, because prior to that my projects were always very, very personal. And this, not that this isn't, but they were much more introspective. And again, not that this isn't, but they would focus on, they wouldn't be as full frontal, if that makes sense. They wouldn't look outwards to other people, or other than the people who aren't in my immediate circle of friends. So it was quite a challenge mentally just to be able to jump into these new spaces and photograph people who are like either at an arm's length or even really close to me, or super far out, like, because you walk into any public space and people look at you kind of funny when you've got a camera, except for here, which is what I guess allowed me to continue to work.
I definitely felt that when I was photographing the protests. It was a very different dynamic to doing street photography, which like, because I'm not the most confident street photographer, I'm quite cautious about it. I try not to get in people's faces and whatnot, because you don't know how they're going to react. The difference was, with going to the protests is, every journalist and photographer in London is there, and people expect to be photographed. So you can literally put a lens that close to someone's face. You're there. And you can put yourself in a mindset to just photograph completely comfortably and freely, because you're so sort of assured that no one's going to react negatively. In fact, people are anticipating it and hoping for it. They want to be seen. They want to be seen taking part in this very significant event, and to be shown that they did their bit.
Well, I think, I suppose, I was trying to think if there was anything to contrast that, but it's probably more, it's more in line in the sense that people want to be there doing their bit. I think the only difference is that as much as it's skateboarding as a space that welcomes the cameras and the record of it and stuff, tricks aside, I don't imagine people are that gung-ho about like their name being plastered just for showing up.
Yeah.
And because the more skaters that you meet, like, you'll find that they're all just the sweetest, kindest people who are just so generous and just caring and all of these wonderful things. And like, there's one of my other favorite pictures, it's towards the middle. I kind of shot it from the hip. It's the one, this one of the two gents drinking and having a laugh and stuff. Like, you know, they're there in that space just having a chat. They're not, you know, to this day they probably don't know that they're in this book, in this scene.
See if I can find mine.
But I just lost my train of thought, damn it. But yeah, that what you were saying was just kind of reminded me of that, of just happy to be in that space and just welcoming it all. And when we had the launch for this at a hotel skate shop, which was then called Cheap Hotel Skate Shop, I had my friend Alfie, who wrote the afterword of the zine, who I confided in a lot during the beginning, middle, and end of the project. I used to skate with him when I was younger. He made the comment on the fact that the gentleman's hoodie, it says lover, just kind of related back to like all of these themes of like love and companionship and stuff. So it's like nice to have like a visual representation of that.
It is a real community piece. I mean, like, so this is my favorite picture. And to me, this is sort of a very sort of Sistine Chapel type moment, you know, to Adam or whatever it is. But like, to me, I sort of see this thing of, you know, two generations interacting with one another and sort of, you know, passing on of legacy and that sort of thing. It just sort of, it's a nice picture to sort of show how community focused this thing is. And the fact that people are turning out for these people who they cared a lot about. And, you know, who they obviously admired. And that's my favorite picture in there, for sure.
Thank you very much. So bangers and mash. Banger racing, what is it?
So essentially what banger racing is it's quite a popular sport in Europe, a popular motorsport in Europe. Just have a door. The idea of it is that it's a circular, usually a dirt track, and it's stock cars. So these are very, very cheap scrap cars that have been bought, and you know, it's usually like families and teams of friends. They buy them, get them running again, put bigger engines in them, completely strip them, you know, take all the seats out, all the upholstery, everything, just to make them light. They're basically like what a rally car would look like, and they put a roll cage in them, and then they race them. And you know, the idea of banger racing is it's a very sort of high contact motorsport. There's very little rules. There's a lot of crashes, a lot of like shoving, that sort of thing. There's different categories of it. So there's like junior bangers, which are like 10 to 15-year-olds. So literally, like, they have 10-year-olds driving 1000cc cars, and like they are the most violent racers out of everyone. That's the most chaotic race of the day. It's always the juniors. That's where you get the most crashes. And like, though, for me, the whole premise of it is it's a very accessible type of racing. You know, you get a massive mix of people there from all sorts of backgrounds, because it's sort of a place where, you know, anyone can be there, as long as they can, you know, build a car or know someone who can build a car. They can get hold of a scrap car. You don't need a license to drive the car, so it's private land. That's why the kids are involved with it. And there's a really interesting community behind it. So I've been focusing on Stanstead Raceway, which is near me in Essex. And they have a race meeting sort of every 1 or 2 weeks. And I've been going there with cameras and photographing a little bit of the actual races, but mostly I get in the pits and I talk to people, and I sort of photograph them working on their cars, photograph them interacting with each other, interacting with their kids as well, you know, how they sort of get them involved. And just, you know, trying to create like a community portrait and trying to establish some sort of theme with the photography, which hasn't, well, it's somewhat, there's a lot of potential discussions about masculinity and adolescence and violence, that sort of thing, you know, tribalistic violence, that sort of thing. Because I try to use Lord of the Flies as sort of the you know, a model on which to build the images. So, you know, anarchic spaces, the island is the track, there's no rules, and then the boys in the book or the racers sort of fighting with each other, power, first place, and yeah, that's banger racing.
It's interesting you talk about like the themes that you're trying to find in the works and stuff. I wondered if there was any overlap between the themes you found in this project as to like your previous project, like I guess your British trade series and things. Like, is there, and every now and again there's something quite small that you manage to find, this little pocket of life that like you just didn't really know was a thing. So I wonder if there's something about, if there's something about Britain that you're trying to find out, or you're trying to say, or just, is it just niches that you're just quite interested in looking at?
I think I like with British trades, it was mostly looking at people who work with their hands, and trying to sort of preserve some of these trades, because some of them are sort of disappearing. It was meant to be sort of an homage to August Sander and his American photography, and sort of a look at, you know, I sort of thinking, okay, how would August Sander have made those pictures if he had digital photography? And, you know, how can I use those as a piece of representation? And with those ones, I don't know particularly now if they are, you know, particularly British in appearance. Maybe some of the like pictures of the butchers, but with this one, I think it is definitely, and yeah, I think it's the whole thing of like working with the hands and, you know, a skill and that sort of thing.
Because there's quite a few pictures I've noticed that of, you know, someone's very dirty hands deep in an engine, or underneath a bonnet, or a bumper, or whatever. So that's where I made that connection.
Yeah, I think that one thing that I feel a lot is that we're too comfortable now as a society. We're not, you know, we're not able to get our hands dirty in a physical sense, you know. And I think I sort of liked photographing those sorts of things, because it sort of shows people who are sort of very much focused on, you know, being in the reality, you know, like not sitting behind a computer, that sort of thing, you know, running a simulation and or working a desk job, that sort of thing. They're very much present in the real world and working with the real world. And I like photographing reflections of that.
Okay. We spoke earlier about like Japanese photography, and like some of the protest images that came out of that. People like Yataka Takanashi and I forget the name of his famous image, the one of the gentleman like running out in an open space. There's a lot of images that are evocative of that sort of sharp, jittery,
Yeah.
blurred. It's funny putting together the words sharp and blurred, but
Yeah.
you know, maybe it's because you shot them digitally as well. Like digital feels a lot sharper than film would anyway. But I wondered if those sort of like high action, dangerous sort of feels, those were something, or if there was any artist that you were maybe trying to replicate here, like, or not even replicate, but you mentioned earlier about August Sander as well.
Yeah.
And how would this person take that photograph? Was there anything like that here, or was it just I'm just going to go and photograph everything I can see?
So with the sort of emulating Japanese photography, I wanted to try and put forward sort of the chaos and the violence of the races without using very typical sports photography. So, you know, I was trying to sort of make quite abstract, very sort of non-static pieces, very short, sorry, very slow shutter speeds. You know, some areas of very bright exposure, some areas are very dark, sort of, you know, things that have moved in the frame, made all these sort of shapes and patterns in which you can still sort of see what's going on. You can still tell it's a car or two cars, you know, racing each other, but it's a bit more interpretive, or leaves a bit more interpretation up to a viewer. And for that sort of thing, I was looking at Shomei Tomatsu and his protest images, which I think were taken, I think, in the 1970s, and they're sort of these high viewpoint images looking down on protests in the city of Shinjuku in Japan. And it's the same sort of thing, very slow shutter speeds. You can sort of see a lot of motion in them. So like there's an image where you can see someone throwing a stone, and with sort of the motion in it, sort of he's almost lost in the image, but you can still sort of see just his shape, and you get that, you get a lot of the chaos and the violence coming through. And yeah, that's what I was trying to emulate in those pictures.
Well, it's nice because since it's still ongoing, you've not finished it yet. That's something that you could lean further into as well. Because I think the only thing that holds the series as a whole back from that is some of the other images that feel slightly more evocative of, like, I don't know, just like slightly more general photos of like dirt tracks and rally racing. But I know this is something different. So and I'm sure you'll want to anyway, but like the images I would imagine should sort of convey that this isn't just the same thing as every other, like, dirt car racing kind of thing. So maybe leaning into the abstract as much as you're talking about it, I think that'd be pretty good. And it'd be good for you to practice that in a different, just to get out of the routine of making work in the same way. Like, I'm doing the same thing, like trying to just make things that you look at it and you're like, well, I can maybe see what that is, but I still don't really know. And I think that'd be quite exciting.
Yeah. What I like about this one is that it's not the sort of thing where I'm going and photographing every day, because it's sort of a regimented thing. You know, it's every week or every couple of weeks. Like, the time in between gives me a chance to really look at the pictures and to talk with other people about them, like we're doing now. So like then the next time I go, I have like a completely different, you know, viewpoint and a different way of thinking about it. It makes quite different images, and like I'm now racking up a massive edit of images, which, you know, when I've actually finished the shooting process, I'll edit down into a more cohesive and much more compact series. And, you know, the sort of spread of visual languages in those images and the actual content of them as well should sort of form the narrative that I'm going for.
Do you imagine it as a book, or as a zine, or maybe as something else?
Yeah, I think it would be nice to do a zine, because like like we were talking about earlier with accessibility. I really like this project by Mark Neville, where he entered a village in Scotland and spent, I think, 2 or 3 years photographing the people there, and then everyone who was in the book got a copy of the book, and they weren't sold elsewhere. So I like the, in a similar sort of spirit, I like the idea of everyone who's in the book being able to have a copy of it, and it being accessible to them. So, in a zine format, I can make loads of them. And, in the same way that the racing is accessible because it's affordable, it's affordable type of racing. I think, the zine is such a good format for that as well. I think design wise as well, because like for this, I don't want it to end up being very, like with British traits, that's a 48 image edit. It's quite large, and the book is quite large. With this one, I want it to be a bit more compact, and a zine makes a bit more sense to that.
I suppose, yeah, and coming back to just as exactly what we were saying earlier, I would imagine, or maybe I don't know who what these people are like. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but I can't imagine the drivers, or from what the images were showing of the drivers, to be sitting with a nice hardback or something. They need something kind of smaller and more.
It's got to be something that sort of just sits on a coffee table, and becomes like here's my zine from the racetrack I go to, and I don't want it to be like a hardcover thing that just sits on a shelf and just gets picked up when it's thought about.
Speaking on the drivers, well, could you tell us a bit more about them? Like, how much of this do they consider like work? How much do they rest or play? Or like, do they really live and breathe it outside of that once a week or once every 2 weeks? Or
I think they do. I think they're, because I'm part of the group chat for the track, and it's always active. I think when they're not working and spending time with their families, because obviously it's a hobby for most of them. I don't know much about professional banger racing, but yeah, I think they really are putting a lot of time, because like if you look at the cars, they're all very personalized, and had a lot of many hours put into them. So yeah, no, I do think they're very passionate about it, and like some of the people, so some of the people who own the track as well, they're spending a lot, because like it's run as a business, which obviously leads in a lot of care and attention put into it.
So do people have to pay to enter then, or?
Yeah, so the drivers pay a license for a season, and then that covers them racing for all the meets, and then like if you're just a spectator, you pay for entry. But because it has to make money to keep running, so it makes sense. I met the track manager yesterday actually, and he was talking about how when he first got to the place, it was pretty much when he first bought the land, the track was already there, and it was pretty much derelict. It just hadn't been touched in years, and he got it up and running with himself and a few other people, and that, like, I'm pretty sure yesterday there must have been maybe 400 or 500 people in attendance.
Wow.
Total, and it keeps the place running. It has to.
I wonder how you get something started like that. Like, you just with a bunch of friends and you hand out flyers. Do you hand out flyers, or do you drive your car into someone's living room? Like, what? What are you?
The windows, By the way, we're opening a racetrack.
Here's my card. Or like you just drive in and just banger.
That's one way of doing it, yeah. But I think they just, because like I had the flyer somewhere. I can't remember where I did it, but where I put it. But like they're on like all the social medias and stuff, and Like the group's got about 6,500 members.
Wow.
So like there's, and like you'd be surprised how popular this is. There's quite a lot of tracks still active in the UK.
Okay. Would you start going to those other ones and maybe over time?
No, I like focusing on this one. I'm gonna have to because I'm obviously doing this for a uni project, and I've got a submission deadline. There's only so long of the actual race season left. So you know, maybe if I went back to it in the coming years and decided to photograph more about it, I would visit other tracks. I'd like to go to the northern tracks because they're meant to be very exciting. You see sort of like double-decker cars and buses and that sort of thing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Someone showed me a picture of it yesterday. It's like literally, there was an episode of Top Gear where they did it. They like welded another car onto one, and then they put the steering column and pedals in the top car.
Oh, that's cool.
The bottom car. It was
Yeah. Sounds like
love to get some of that.
Yeah. Sounds like a very dangerous time, but I'm here for watching.
Like you probably saw yesterday, I put a video on my Instagram story because the track manager, like, he gave me a high vis and let me go past the fence and literally sit at the side of the track to take pictures. And like I thought, I'll take a video on my phone. And like you can see a moment where I saw a car lose control a little bit, and I thought, oh god, I'm gonna have to run. and I went, oh no, it's okay.
Just my time has come.
Yeah. You sort of leant back into the light as you said that.
Oh. I wonder, let's come back out of the light into reality. I had an idea as you was just talking about the flyer, and we were talking about like covers and books and stuff earlier. I wonder if you did end up putting this into a zine or a zine, maybe you could have like the flyer for this as the cover for it, or some emulation of it.
Because like they have a logo and everything, and like the graphic design they use for like the posters on their Facebook is very fun. It's like like the logo and then like these pictures of these big car crashes.
That sounds cool. It would, I think, for something like yours, it reminded me of I can't remember the name of who'd done it, but I remember buying it from your courses, one of your courses auctions. Somebody had made like a spoof on like match attacks. Like there was this photographer
Joe Giacomet.
Oh right, yeah.
And
he'd like photographed all these people that were there to like represent like Pele and Maradona and all of these people, but they were just some guy, or like just whoever, just in a wig and a moustache or in a knockoff Brazil shirt. Yeah, I think that because I got it from my brother, so I'm sure you could have a look at it again at some stage. But I think that'd be like quite a fun little reference for you.
I think I like that because it's a sort of a fun twist on like on typical sports photography, and I think
well, because it's not typical sports photography. That's the thing. That's the goal that you're trying to get to. That this isn't just the same thing.
Yeah, there are some parts of it that are quite funny. Like when I'm showing people pictures of like a bloke like using a sledgehammer to take a dent out of his car so he can fit the wheel back in. That sort of thing, it's quite funny. And like a 12-year-old kid, bent over an engine with a ratchet. Like,
I think that's the funniest or the most jarring thing to me. You see in these like actual children operating these things. Like I can't drive, but I mean I can't afford to. But maybe I need to start banger racing in order to drive. That's another question. Like, are these kids driving outside of the races? They probably are, in small streets and stuff, maybe.
I'd imagine they are maybe on private land because they've got to practice, but they're really good drivers, a lot of them.
Yeah.
But like a lot of them are doing really, really like complicated, skillful maneuvers out on the racetrack. Turning the cars sideways and everything. And they're manual cars as well. And like, some of them are probably better drivers than me.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Not even seen them, but yeah, can't be too hard.
I'm never offering you it again.
Threshold's pretty low. Anyway.
Yeah, but like a lot of them are very, like a lot of these kids are very impressive, like genuinely. Like they've got no fear. They're not scared of anything. They're like literally yesterday at one of the races, one car overtook another car, these kids, and like sent one of them flying into the tires, flipped, car went back on its wheels. Kid just kept on driving.
Wow.
Like, and it easily had like gone up over the wheels at like 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They don't care.
No, they just turn their cheat codes on and just keep going.
They are invincible kids.
That's crazy, man. I mean, I guess when you're young, you do feel like that. So, being in that kind of scenario, maybe it just amplifies that feeling. And at some point in your life, like more or less every boy was bound to be obsessed with like monster trucks and breaking things anyway. Yeah. So maybe this does come back into like themes on like masculinity and stuff like that, and how we grow and how we're shown things and stuff. So there's probably a lot of other little themes dotted around in this, as you was already saying, but
there is a lot. Yeah.
So I wonder if there's is there one you want to pick at all, or is it just keeping it as just themes?
I like looking, I think masculinity and violence are very prominent in hip. Not like the really sort of go to war kind of violence. The more sort of taking out, and we're talking about like men's mental health and that sort of thing, and how it's not talked about, and how like men take things out in certain ways, and I think this is one example of that. It's getting out in a track on a racetrack and like using some real aggression. And it's if you're going through stuff in life, that's got to make you feel better.
Yeah,
maybe
especially
that's passionate about it. It's like a fix.
I was going to say, especially in a space where you're fully welcome to do so, you're encouraged to, and the only real consequences are like you might have a little bump, but because you got your helmet on and whatever else, and you got people there to take care of you.
Yeah,
tumbling over like a 3-4 ton vehicle probably isn't that deep, So interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to sort of having a big run of images and condensing it down.
That's always where the biggest work comes in. So, like I can't even remember how many rolls of film I would have shot for Wake, but yeah, the curation of the work is more so work than taking the pictures.
Yeah, I was talking about this with my tutor, Paula, the other day about like how I'm going to go about editing this thing. I just said like I'm going to need a lot of help.
Yeah,
I'm going to need a lot of help. Like doing. I'm going to have to actually sit with someone and go through it multiple times.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
just print out loads of small ones, and we'll get a bottle of rum or something as well to keep us going.
See that going really well.
Yeah. But no, man, I really look forward to
it. That's why I did the edit for my protest series. Literally printed off the whole PowerPoint, spread them on a table in the library. Got my friend Amir and said like, I'm going to go and get a coffee, like take out all the pictures that don't work so I can't see you doing it.
Oh, that's smart.
And then when I come back, see what I think.
How many pictures were left?
I think like maybe like 20, 25 images.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think I only submitted about 20. There's a lot more on my website than was submitted. Because for the website, I thought, okay, I'm going to need a longer run of images because it's just it sort of almost acts like a news piece, that sort of thing. People want to see loads of pictures of something, that situation.
Right. How do you feel about sharing work when it's not finished?
I used to do it, and then things would change throughout the run of the project. You know, I might edit pictures differently or sit pictures differently together or have them in a different sequence. And then it was a bit annoying thinking, oh, you know, I've got to go back on that now. So I haven't put these pictures from the Banger series anywhere yet. There's none on my website, none on my Instagram, anything like that. I only want to share it when I've got that final edit that I'm going to submit. And then as well, because like this is being used, so I have a grad show, I think either November or December, and like, that's going to be a whole other edit. So like this thing's going to be developing now for a long time, and I think it's sensible really to only share stuff when it's sort of fully realized.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I just wondered, because you mentioned about like having longer form versions of series on your website, and I know on your site you do have quite a lot of stuff there, which is good. I just wonder how, because some people go for the less is more approach,
Yeah,
and it's interesting that you use your website as like a newsprint, a news board
yeah,
you kind of described. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
yeah. Well, because I think I'm trying to be more of a journalist and a photographer. I think having a good expanse of things that I've worked on, I think sort of shows where my interests are and sort of the range of, because like when I shoot stuff, like I like every project to look completely different to the last one. So I think that shows sort of my range as a photographer, my understanding of using digital and analog and lighting and all these like different processes, for like potential clients and that sort of thing. So I try and use it as an expand, because I've got printed portfolio. Try and use it as an expanded portfolio.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are you still shooting film for this series now, or not at all?
I bought 5 rolls of HP5, and I take them with me in a 35mm camera. Yesterday I didn't feel like shooting them because the light didn't feel right for me for shooting film. It was very, very harsh light yesterday. So I've got it there if I feel like shooting it. And if I don't end up shooting it, I'll sell the film. It's fine.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's potential, because like I'm more open now to mixing mediums than I was doing my BA. So it's I'm open to the possibility of doing that. So I've always got the film just in case.
It's always nice to go back to one or the other, just so you know
Yeah.
you've got other options. Like I got 2 new cameras this year. I got my 5D, and I just got a Mamiya RZ. I'm very, very happy about both of those. It's funny, when I got the Canon, I'd like stopped shooting film completely. I was like, no, I just can't do it anymore. I can do some really great stuff with the 5D that can slightly mimic film. I know the purist film heads are going to maim me for that. But then I came into this RZ, and it's just like, wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, this idea of mixing, I agree with you. I quite like it, but being a bit more open to it, because both have such great benefits. So just why not give yourself an option?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's sort of it can be good to have a project where you have just multiple different types of visual language.
Sometimes you can't even always tell. So
yeah, sometimes you can't.
Unless somebody makes a really strong point of saying this is digital here or this is film here, or you're just not going to know. But yeah,
You think like cinema, like some films are shot with 3 different cameras. You look at The Dark Knight. That was shot with both an IMAX camera and just a standard cinema camera.
Is IMAX film? Is it like 70mm film or something?
Don't know about that.
Because I thought IMAX was just like massive sensors.
Yeah, I know the IMAX is a much bigger format. I'm not sure if it's digital though.
Yeah.
But like you can see it, like you can see the format changing throughout the film. But does anyone ever complain?
I hate that. It's so jarring of like two black lines and then like the massive. I can't stand it. It depends on the film. Like,
yeah,
where it's most jarring. This is not maybe it's not the most cultured example, but one of the latest Transformers movies. It was literally like going from looking through a periscope to like just jumping out the submarine completely.
But the editing in those films is awful.
God awful.
Awful.
So yeah, maybe there's the argument, but still, I don't.
Yeah. Good editing is what makes that work.
Yes, but still, I'd say pick one. So that's that. Alrighty. Well, I very much look forward to seeing how Stanstead Raceway series develops.
Yeah, it needs a title. It needs a title now.
Banger racing is fun. You can probably keep it as banger racing if you want, because that's the whole vibe of it. Just fun.
I don't want to go anything like overly poetic, because
you don't need to.
that would be inauthentic, really.
But yeah, some really good stuff. Thank you all for joining us today. We will be back soon with another discussion on something. We'll see what. Just a quick plug. You can still buy a copy of Wake for £10 on either my website, the Hotel Skate Shop website, or another few places we'll link below. All proceeds go to the Ben Ramers Foundation. And you can also watch the short film on YouTube as well. Michael, is there anything you want to plug real quick?
I don't really have anything to plug. I don't sell anything.
You don't have to sell anything.
If you want to buy prints or anything,
look
at my website. You can look at my website. There you go, www.michaelfarraphotography.co.uk.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I have an email section. You can tell me anything you like.
Alrighty. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Michael, and everyone. Go enjoy yourselves as you should.
As you should.
As you should.